The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. Vladimir Lenin.
You know, when I was young, my mom used to tell me that the lights we see in the sky are from stars that burned out millions of years ago. It's like life, you know? I mean, something can be one way you think all your life, and then in reality, it's completely different.
I want to shift the focus of this channel away from only being what it's been so far, which has been talking about the changes with some ramblings here and there, and try to be a little bit more focused, especially because of the fact that I want to primarily focus on some patterns that I am seeing, and it'll only be my interpretation of things, but maybe it could start a conversation, as they say. So I'm still going to talk about a change or two, but then it's going to mostly be conceptual things about the nature of this as far as I see them. So let's get a new Mandela Effect out of the way. As far as a new change, feed that itch. And then I'm going to go from there. So it's the Muppets theme song.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the light.
Light the light. It was Light the Lights. And it's sort of similar to the Gilligan's Island thing, where only the first season played it, but this time it's, as far as I can see, at least up till season 5, that's all I could find on YouTube right now, the original show says Light the Light.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the light. It's time to play the music. It's time to light the light. It's time to play the music. It's time to light the light. It's time to play the music. It's time to light the light.
Alright, now for some quick residue. The movie in 2011, I think, clearly says Light the Lights.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights.
And another, which was only 2 weeks ago at the Hollywood Bowl. I guess the Muppets played there.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights.
Alright, and checking our covers, some of them say lights as residue.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights.
And finally, the covers that remember it as Light the Light. Light the Light being the Mandela effect of this. And that actually trips me out even more than the residue, because of the fact that it's like, what is this implying? You know, so here they are.
It's time to start the music. It's time to light the light. It's time to start the music. It's time to light the light.
Okay, my favorite part for last. OK Go, the band, did a collaboration with the Muppets where they covered the theme song. And I have a live version that says Light the Lights, and I have the Vivo official studio version that says Light the Light.
It's time to light the light.
It's tricky. I mean, it sounds like the lead singer said light. Now, the background people, it sounds like said lights. But let me zoom in on the only person talking here, which sometimes is like the first time I can even make out whether or not the mouth lines up with the Mandela affected word or whatever. Clearly, look, it says there's no S happening there.
It's time to light the light.
Okay, yep, pretty weird. So, because as you'll watch this next one, where it's a live version, and they clearly do say Light the Lights. Watch how his mouth does the S sound.
It's time to light the lights.
Okay, so there's a new one. I want to move on now to the things that I'm really more interested in these days. Not that these aren't important, but I think it's a balance of both. Regarding the Mandela Effect opposition, because the things that have changed for me has reached a triple digits list, it's pretty hard to ignore, especially when it shouldn't happen. Current scientific materialism model indicates that this is impossible.
It's all happening.
It's all happening. It's all happening.
But it's pretty hard when the most indoctrinated theories within the Mandela Effect community are pretty much just not doing us any favors as far as quote-unquote remaining critically thinking. I mean, honestly, they a lot of times line up with the opposition by still implying parallel dimensions and simulation and stuff like that. Well, here's the thing. If I hear some of the opposition saying that, they're like, I think it's because of this. Well, like, that's the biggest clue. If they're saying it's this way, then it must definitely not be that way. Very small percentage of people, I feel like, shy away from it being parallel dimensions. And I feel like
It was a jump to conclusions, Matt.
I mean, just look at what they're saying about this. They're using this parallel dimensional theory as a way of trying to frickin' make people who are unaware of this think that those who are part of crazy town.
What if those memories are wrong? And thousands of others have the exact same false memory.
The Mandela Effect is this pretty crazy idea that pops up from time to time.
We are not living in an alternate reality, in case you were worried.
Oh, thank you, I'm not.
When you left the house today, did you remember to lock the door, turn off the coffee pot, unplug the curling iron?
It seems that some people combine their fuzzy and obviously unreliable memories of Mandela's death in the 1980s with his subsequent release and presidency and somehow conclude that we're somehow sliding between parallel universes.
I don't think that, and I know lots of other people don't either. That's one of the first projected possible answers, but just like other theories that have become mainstream doctrine, the two seem to be associated one with the other. If you believe the Mandela Effect exists, then you must believe that it's this parallel dimensional thing. I'm not saying that it's 100% not true, but I don't personally tend to think that way.
Even when you're positive that you remember something, turns out there's a good chance you're wrong.
Don't you ever trust yourself.
Well, I'm not going to, ever. Even if there's a fire.
What? Oh my goodness.
These people have a variety of ideas about how the transfer between parallel universes occurs, from some sort of natural phenomena to it being caused by the Large Hadron Collider in Europe. Crazy, huh?
All of us fall victim to false memory.
Dr. Gene Brewer is an associate professor of psychology at Arizona State University.
Usually the title associate means voice of authority. Is that really the best that you guys could do? Tee.
We all misremember things, and we do it in a stereotypical way. Our systems work very similarly to one another. So I may have a false memory, you may have a false memory, and those could be very similar to one another.
And somehow conclude that we're somehow sliding between parallel universes.
Rest assured, the physicists have labeled this as fake news.
Thank God.
Luke, I am your father.
Luke, I am your father.
Luke, I am your father.
What if I told you that's wrong?
I'll say, no, you're wrong.
What Darth Vader really said was,
No, I am your father.
How is it that we all misremember the exact same thing?
When I first saw the dialogue that said, Luke, I am your father, I said to myself, he's lying.
Do you think maybe you could do that to me?
I can't say those lines.
Why? Why?
They belong to George Lucas. The sound, that belongs to me, but the words don't belong to me. I can't just throw those
No, but
words
it's
in
Max though, we've changed it.
Those are sacred words.
Could you do it?
Max, I am your father.
That's great.
A spokesperson with the agency was responding to a trending idea.
Trending ideas are always legitimate.
That experiments at CERN caused the world to shift into an alternate reality in which Donald Trump became president.
Let's just throw another illogical association in here and make this into something political. What?
The CERN spokesman said people shouldn't confuse the agency's work with science fiction.
It's really quite depressing. And Albert, this is just obviously silly. I mean, even if we were actually sliding between parallel universes, and of course we're not, how is it that our memories could survive the change?
How indeed could our memories survive? Even though they're telling us that we're probably wrong. I'm not going to be trying to provide an answer for that, because I think anytime we can create some sort of conclusion is probably 100% guaranteed to be a limited interpretation anyways. So I think that what I am going to be doing is just kind of reminding us about it existing and keeping that question alive. But as far as looking at what people who are trying to hide this are saying, whatever their agenda may or may not be, I have my theories, but let's look at this, where they again make an unnecessary association that, well, if you believe it exists, then you must be as spaced out trippy as this guy.
Some of the people most obsessed with the Mandela Effect don't buy these cognitive theories.
Notice the X-Files theme song.
They're convinced that this phenomenon is proof of a parallel universe.
Not exactly.
Some people say past lives, some people say our souls split in many pieces, and we can experience many lives at the same time.
Dave Campbell is a medium and hypnotherapist, and also the owner of the astrology store in Glendale. Campbell says that some people believe that, quote, false memories aren't false at all. They're memories from a parallel universe.
The only false anything is the false associations that you're making this into.
That jumped onto this timeline.
Are you serious?
Sometimes we have similar inventions in different universes at the same time, like microwave. In one universe we might call it a microwave, in another universe we might call it a quick cooker.
Fiona Broom, who started the Mandela Effect,
Hang on, did she really? I didn't think that was possible.
has convinced thousands that we're sliding between multiple universes. In one reality, we read Berenstain Bears with an E, and in another, the beloved books are spelled with an A.
But then there are those who don't think something as drastic needs to be in place for this to be real. Parallel dimensional shifting, although the most popular, is just one of the many theories as to why this may be happening. Some people actually think that possibly the material world is able to just be edited. But the question then still remains, who or what is doing it? And can we actually ever know? Is it possible that as soon as we think that we know the answer to something, we're automatically cutting ourselves short and putting ourselves in a box? A box which, very much like this sort of information, or should I say disinformation piece, is there to make you confused and disassociated with the actual crux of the issue, like what exactly is the highest priority to really analyze. Especially under the agenda of the scientific materialism viewpoint of the world, where once you start even thinking about there being a veil, or God forbid what may lie beyond it, we guarantee that we'll do our best to confuse you out of thinking that way, because we want you to be a better ant for the ant colony and ask 0 questions. Here's a little bit more propaganda to facilitate disinterest.
I don't know, that's pretty deep stuff.
Whether or not you're on board with Broom, memory failure can feel pretty shocking.
I don't think that's happening.
But try to remember this. Don't be too hard on yourself.
How do you think your memory is after this test?
Pretty bad. Like, I shouldn't be in college right now, to be honest.
LOL.
The ASU Psych Department is considering doing research on the Mandela Effect, specifically why people have the same types of false memories.
Anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
And before we go,
Until the results are in, consider the alternative.
If you are going to believe that this is happening, because wink wink it is, then believe our quantum lie.
Maybe there is a parallel universe where everything is just a little bit different.
That's pretty interesting. If you really want to look into the roots of how quantum physics is just a repackaged version of Eastern occult mysticism, then check out the channel Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. I've been digging him super hard. And it also makes me think it because here at the end of the Fermilab video is another trend similar to what we just saw.
So this Mandela Effect thing is simply silly and just isn't true. I'm telling you, Albert, I wish people would just get over it and stop sending me mail and email about it.
Oh my god, the dog turned into a cat. Oh my god, she had two people at the superposition. they're saying that it's fake, but then they're being like, well, where is it?
We don't need those narrow-minded losers.
All right, one final thing. I feel like this is kind of important. Just saying, the way that this is worded is, I mean, I don't know, man. This is like not the best piece of propaganda I've ever seen in my life. You know, it's like even like a non-outlandish thinking person, I feel like would be like, well, this is kind of sketchy. I'm definitely going to look into that.
The best proof of this is the Berenstain Bear example. You could go to every library on the planet and ask people to dig out their books, and every one of them would be of the AIN version. People who believe in the Mandela Effect,
here we go,
would say that this makes sense because either we moved into a world in which the spelling was always right,
no thank you,
or because the change occurred everywhere in our universe.
Also no thank you, because what he is leaving out is something called residue, which is evidence that it existed at one time. And side note, remember that triple digits list I referenced earlier on? Just so that you are aware, the list, to make that list, I had to find ample residue. And if you're new to this and you're just like, what the heck is residue? Residue is when, like, for instance, there's tags that say stain. And by the way, the fact that they focus on Luke Skywalker line and Berenstein Bears and Ford and Febreze and Monopoly Man and all this stuff, it's very, like, which gives those who are like, I don't really think it's real because why would it be pop culture? You know, it gives that, they're not wrong in thinking that, but that's the ones that the opposition is highlighting so that, again, people will be disinterested in my opinion. Never will you hear a mainstream outlet mention the Bible changes, the amount of moon landings, art such as the Rodin Thinker, the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper, where the Holy Grail is not in front of Jesus anymore. Or ding ding ding, here's the craziest ones when people were dead and they're not dead anymore. There's plenty of those, and I don't know about the Mandela thing, and I think the fact that his name is synonymous with this is, again, part of the controlled opposition somehow. Got my theories, I'll talk about it in another video, but that's not the point of this one. But who are these people? Billy Graham is one of them, and which is really weird. And also, how about the names of people? Rod Sterling. It was Rod Sterling, 100%. Everybody that I grew up with that I've asked has said Rod Sterling, but no, his name is Sterling. It always has been. Selma/Salma Hayek, Sally Field, Christopher Reeve, all the, like, a person's name just changes like that. Oh my gosh, what? That's crazy.
But if we move to another universe, we'd also move into one in which our brains always lived, in the AIN universe. And if the change occurred in our universe, you have to remember that books are made of molecules just like our brains. Unless the change was somehow confined to those just particular books, the changes to the brain atoms and the book atoms would have to be the same. We certainly wouldn't remember this differently.
He did say it, unless the molecular changes were strictly to the change, and that's how it seems. Well, it's not strictly to the change, because there's plenty of people who are like, no, it was always that way, which is, again, one of the things that makes this ultra confusing. This is old news for people who have been into this for a while, but just telling those who might be new, because people are going to be waking up to this more and more, and I'm just trying to throw this stuff out there as just something that is a little bit less specific, because I think when we get specific is when we get dangerous, and when we start answering is when we start being wrong. Hello, how are you? I am one of these people who believes that we're being lied to on a daily basis, and it's been programmed into our culture to such a fine degree, ding, that basically everything that we can perceive is kind of just a limited conclusion, and there's a lot more going on here, and I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to try to attempt to answer it, but what I do know is that because of seeing the Mandela Effect and also not buying the controlled opposition that they tell us is the reason for it, I have been inspired to make these weird videos, but I still think I'm a normal person.